Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill, midnight Eastern time for the boys out on the East Coast, Nebraska, losing a heartbreaker to an Illinois team that you got to give credit to. I thought played a very good football game. And, for Nebraska, before we get into the negatives, of which there were many, you got a special quarterback in Dylan Raiola. And look, I get he missed that throw towards the end of the game that probably you win that football game with him completing that throw. Outside of that, I thought he was exceptional. I mean, you talk about a true freshman managing a football game for 3.5 quarters, like he was a redshirt senior. If you're Nebraska, I'm not trying to get up here and be all positive right now. You have a quarterback that you're going to win a lot of football games in the future with. Now, getting into the negatives, Dill, I want to start on the defensive side of the football. If you would have told me that Illinois runs the football for 166 yards, almost 5 yards per carry, and puts up 31 points on this Nebraska defense, I would have told you you're out of your mind. And I think one of the problems that we saw emerge in this football game is kind of goes back to how we talked about this team in the summer. Look, we were fired up about this Nebraska defense. We were fired up about what we saw through the first three games. What happened in the fourth quarter? It seemed like this Nebraska front kind of wore down. And we kind of talked about the depth concerns for this Nebraska defense heading into the year in 2024. It kind of made me so confused when Riley Van Poppel got the red shirt put on him, because this is a game where I think you could have used those valuable 10 to 15 reps from a guy like him. The lack of depth on the defensive line, having guys like Ty Robinson and Nash play probably 60 snaps in this football game, I think that kind of cost Nebraska the game, especially as we got into the fourth quarter here.
And that was the most disappointing part is like you kind of knew the depth might be an issue. You're certainly hoping you could bring guys like Van Poppel around, but obviously they don't really trust anyone
No one.
besides who they play the whole game. When they're not in, you see a big drop off still. So yeah, that's certainly something. And again, obviously only year two for Matt Rhule. So there's still you still got to build up the pipeline, if you will, in that position. But obviously, it's still going to be a problem. And I don't know if you can fix it this year. At least I think it's still going to rear its.
I think Riley Van Poppel's red shirt's got to come off. I don't see why I get Matt Rhule, you're a developmental coach. That's how you want to run this program. But if you have a guy that could really just give you a better chance to win football games, you can't play around with the red shirt. I think that's my first impression. Is it does seem like for one, I thought Illinois' offensive line started playing well, kind of dominated that football game entirely. But specifically in the fourth quarter, I thought the second most frustrating aspect was, we always talked about what gave Nebraska so much success against Colorado was getting pressure with only sending four. Like, Nebraska really wasn't able to do that on the defensive side of the football consistently in this game. Like, you take a look at some of the impact plays they made. Say you're right, coming on the corner blitz, he had a phenomenal football game. They struggled in the pass rush, only rushing four. And I think that's another thing. We talked about keys to the game coming into this. Impact Luke Altmaier, get him to make some mistakes. It never really felt like Nebraska was able to do that in this football game. And I think it partially starts with, throughout the first three games, you kind of dominated with your front four. And I think Tony White didn't really catch on until it was too late that, hey, we got to start bringing some more guys to impact Luke Altmaier. When they brought some pressure, you saw Nebraska play some better defense, but I felt like they went to that a little too late in this football game. And again, I think that was another negative that I have on my note sheet here.
Yeah, I agree. Through the first part, it didn't seem like they were attacking. It didn't seem like they were kind of making Altmaier at all uncomfortable. And I think you're right. I mean, you obviously go to that corner blitz with Sayer right and make a big play. You obviously started to turn the heat up a little bit on that 2-minute drive that Illinois tried to orchestrate. And they were doing their thing. They were getting him off the spot. He didn't look as comfortable. They weren't able to complete those rhythmic, short, or quick outs, essentially, and quick slants. That's kind of what they go to. It's their bread and butter of their offense. But yeah, when they started to generate something in the pressure category, obviously that kind of got shut down. And I'm kind of with you. I was a little bit like, man, we got to start attacking this defense or attacking that offense.
It kind of felt like it wasn't the same Nebraska defense we were used to seeing, not only start 2024, but go back to 2023, where we're really trying to smother teams. You never really got that sense. How many times did Illinois punt in that football game? I think twice. Like Illinois really kind of could do what they want on the offensive side of the football. And
That
again,
frankly isn't to absolve. Like the defensive tackle play just probably needed to be better in the pass rush because that was a unit
agreed.
I think I was kind of looking. I mean, Kansas was able to generate a little bit against that Illinois team. And again, you look at Ty and Nash, and those guys are better than the guys on Kansas. Like I know that they're better than them. And they just weren't really getting after it either. So again, like, yeah, you want Tony White to attack, but you also need that defensive line, frankly, to play better wall to wall in that football game. Because yeah, I get the depth is an issue. It's obviously an issue, and a huge issue in this game, but I think it was a little more disappointing, frankly. You didn't see them come out and dominate that
I'm
game.
interested to see what the snap chart looks like because it seemed like Ty was playing out on the edge a lot. And, we kind of talked about this one heading in. Illinois got two really solid offensive tackles, guys that will be playing in the NFL. Where you had some question marks was on the inside. And I feel like you want to try to capitalize on some of those matchups with Ty Robinson, putting him on the inside. I always feel like he's a little bit more of a disruptive football player when he's playing more to the three tech as opposed to that edge rusher. And I think a second part, I thought the linebacker play was a disaster. Stephon Thompson, a guy that we've seen play very good football at Syracuse under Tony White, just seemed lost out there. Like
He's
the
not
linebacker,
playing fast enough. At the end of the day, they need to be playing faster. I think, again, you saw them in coverage struggle. It felt like the middle of the field was pretty open pretty much all game, and they weren't fitting runs. It was, I'd say, a really, really disappointing showing from those backers. And obviously, when you lose a guy like Javin Wright, you might have some problems, but that Illinois team really feasted on them both in the run and work in the middle of the field.
yeah, a lot of blown assignments. We're not used to seeing blown assignments like we saw from Nebraska tonight. Like how many guys were just kind of getting scot free on some of that play action, especially to the tight ends, especially in kind of the red zone area. Bad red zone defense for Nebraska tonight as well. Sayer Wright, on a positive note, played a phenomenal game. Like I was quite concerned when Tommy Hill went out. I was like, all right, we got to deal with two really talented boundary wide receivers. Is Sayer Wright kind of up for the task? He was obviously phenomenal. I thought the pass interference call wasn't a very fair call. Y'all know I don't really like to talk about the refs. Yes, were there some calls that could have gone Nebraska's way? Yeah, absolutely. That being said, I think Nebraska also left some plays on the table that caused them to lose this football game. Dill, flipping to the offensive side of the football, look, I'm a fan of what the Nebraska offense looked like. And if you were to say you go for 300 and 61 total yards, especially in the performance in the first half, I think you had 17 points going into the half, 17-10. It's one, Nebraska didn't get many drives in the second half because it seemed like Illinois was on the football field for pretty much that whole second half. Dylan had that one bad drive where he had the fumble that kind of went backwards. And then obviously in overtime, Dylan made some incredible throws, whether they're tight windows, whether it was putting some touch on the football, whether it was you're taking your checkdowns in the first half. That's about as good as it gets. Now, the frustrating part for me is what has Matt Rhule always preached, and that is grinding down teams with the run game. They weren't running the football. It wasn't a great rushing attack, but it certainly wasn't necessarily bad. I thought you could get a better performance out of Dante Dowdle. Didn't think he could. I thought he had the opportunity to make some more players miss at the second level. What I was surprised with is Nebraska kind of just went against their identity. Like they didn't really try to run the football all that much in the second half. It turned into what I felt like was a one-dimensional offense. And you saw Illinois start to just kind of pin the ears back, some stunts, some twists, kind of, hey, how can we get after the passer? In the second half, the offense just never clicked like it did in the first half. And again, I think it's partially mostly on the defense for not getting off the football field, but
No, hindsight's 2020.
I agree.
That
Agreed.
fourth or third and three, I should say, in the fourth quarter, I think you'd like to be able to be confident enough in your offensive line to keep that on the ground and really just salt that football a game away.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of
Yes.
were driving in the way I think you wanted. They were running the ball really well. They were moving guys off line of scrimmage. That to me was like the drive I think you want from Nebraska. It's like that's what I think the whole game I almost wish you would have looked like. And then they go on third and three, they kind of go away for it, try to do something cute a little bit. And it was there.
It
Obviously,
worked.
you need to hit that play, but that's putting a lot of like
It's so here's where I'm at with that is
their business.
it's hindsight 2020 100%, and obviously the play call worked and you got to execute that play. Dylan certainly knows that. You had about 3 minutes and 30 seconds on the clock. Illinois has all two of their timeouts, I believe. you have a backup kicker. You probably don't want to have to kick that field goal in that part, especially with how your defense has been playing. Like, that's not a guaranteed win making that field goal. If I'm Nebraska, I'm running the football there. Even if I don't get it, it's a 4th and 1. Then I'm leaning on my offensive line as well, an interior offensive line that I thought was playing pretty well to get that
Especially on
first
that drive.
down.
I think they were starting to wear them down. On that drive, it did look like they were starting to gash them a bit. And I was really, really surprised. I know we were talking about it right before that play kind of went off. It's like, well, they're going to run the ball here, right? It's going to be 2 down territory, and they're
Yeah,
going to try to run it and take this game down. Because essentially, you get that first down,
you
you probably leave Illinois with like a minute or something.
yeah, you're probably winning that football game. Again, it's hindsight 2020. I think this one, and it's frustrating for me. Obviously, you guys see the Nebraska shirt on. Like, I felt like Nebraska had the plays to it just kind of the same feeling. You know what I mean? Like, it's a 1-score game. You had opportunities to win the football game and you didn't make the plays. And the penalties were also a
Oh,
problem.
horrible.
Um, and I get MJ Sherman probably punching at the ball, but you can't do that after the 4th whistle's been blown. Like, you got to stop throwing punches. Frustrating one, Dill. I think we'll probably dive into this football game a little bit more. This is a little bit off the cuff. I just got a couple notes on my notepad here. Wanted to come on. The Nebraska fans, let it off your chest in the comment section. Again, all the support you guys have shown the boys, it means the world. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Probably going to dive into this football game maybe tomorrow morning, Dill. Rewatch it, kind of gather our thoughts. Appreciate you guys, and we'll talk to y'all later.